I had been swiping on Tinder for weeks with no luck, not a single match. I couldn't understand it. I knew I wasn't unattractive. Finally, my phone beeped, and I saw that I had a match. He suggested we meet at a nearby cafe in an hour, so I rushed to change into a stylish outfit and headed out. When I arrived at the cafe and spotted him, I couldn't believe my eyes. He was sitting in a booth with a girl across from him. It was surreal. I had heard about guys trying to juggle multiple dates, but this was unexpected. Curiosity got the best of me, so I decided to walk by and see if he noticed me. Well, he did. He actually let out a scream and knocked his soda all over his date, creating quite the scene. He stood up and pointed at me, exclaiming, "There's two of you." The girl turned around, and I was left in a state of shock. It was my sister, my identical twin sister to be precise. "Nova, what are you doing here?" I asked her. She got angry and accused me of ruining her new dress by showing up like this and scaring her date. She explained that she had just come in for coffee, and this guy had walked up to her and started chatting her up. I told her that I had matched with him on Tinder and that he was waiting for me. The guy stood there, utterly bewildered, as he tried to make sense of the situation. We must have caused quite a ruckus because out of nowhere, another guy approached us and informed our date in no uncertain terms that I was supposed to be his date, and that both my sister and I had a reputation for dating everyone in town. He advised him to run while he still had the chance. I couldn't believe what was happening. This was supposed to be my very first date ever, and it had turned into a complete mess. I tried to protest, telling the random guy that this was my date, but he just laughed and said, "Sure, and I'm the Queen of England." He then walked away with my date in tow. As they left, I overheard the waiter saying, "Sorry, buddy, these girls are always up to no good." I had reached my breaking point with my sister. She had always gotten her way, and now it had cost me my first date. No wonder I'd only gotten one Tinder match. People probably assumed I was my sister and wanted to avoid the chaos. I couldn't believe how my sister had managed to mess things up so spectacularly. I had always known she was quite active in the dating scene, but I had no idea she had a reputation for going out with every guy she fancied. Storming out of the cafe, she chased after me, trying to explain that what happened in there was just a bizarre coincidence and that she hadn't dated as many guys as it seemed. But I wasn't buying it. She had a history of taking what was mine, whether it was toys as kids or friends in high school. Now, she had managed to steal my very first date. I was 21, and all I wanted was to meet a nice guy and potentially build a future together. How hard could that be? I made a few more attempts on Tinder, but one guy called me a liar, claiming my name was Nova, not Stella, and promptly blocked me. I felt like my life was spiraling out of control. I had spent 3 years in college, fully focused on my studies, and had never really made time for dating. Now that I was back home, my sister had disrupted my plans, but I wasn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. The next time I saw her heading out on a date, I decided to follow her. I wanted to see what she was doing to make guys get so tired of her. Was she simply going out on a date and then ghosting them? I also had a score to settle with her for what she had done to me. Maintaining a safe distance, I observed as she met this guy in the park. They chatted for a while and then left together. I tried to tail them discreetly, but I lost track of their whereabouts. An elderly woman noticed my confusion and said, "Oh dear, I think I'm seeing double," before walking away. I couldn't believe my luck. I had lost them. I waited anxiously for what felt like hours until they finally returned to the park. My sister kissed him goodbye and headed back to her car, leaving the guy behind. He stayed there for some reason, and after about 20 minutes, I decided I had nothing to lose. I approached him, and a mischievous grin formed on his face. "Back for more already?" He teased with a grin as I approached him. It was strange. I missed him even though I had just left. I suggested that we could hang out some more, and he eyed my outfit, puzzled by my quick return. Trying to cover up, I mentioned that I had changed because I felt cold. To my surprise, he shrugged and commented that I looked even cuter now. The embarrassing part was that I didn't even know his name, and I couldn't bring myself to ask him at that moment. We ended up talking for hours, and I apologized for rushing things earlier. He agreed it had been fun, but suggested that maybe we should slow down and take the time to get to know each other better. I readily agreed. When he excused himself to use the restroom, I seized the opportunity to grab his phone and quickly changed my sister's contact details to mine, finally revealing his name, Adrian. We said our goodbyes, and I went home, eagerly anticipating my sister falling asleep. Once she did, I discreetly took her phone and deleted Adrian's number while blocking him on her Tinder account. I just hoped she wouldn't catch on. The next morning, I casually asked her about her date from the night before. She nonchalantly replied that he wasn't her type and that she wouldn't be seeing him again. I breathed a sigh of relief. Now, there was just one small hitch. I really liked him, but he thought I was my sister. I needed to find out what Nova had talked to him about, so I wouldn't mess things up the next time I saw him. When I approached her for advice, she just winked and said, "We didn't really talk much, if you know what I mean." I decided to text Adrian right away, telling him I had a fantastic time the previous day and couldn't wait to see him again. His response was immediate, asking if I wanted to go to the movies that night. I couldn't believe it. Someone actually wanted to go out with me. Sure, he thought I was Nova, but who cared? He liked me, didn't he? That evening, we went to the movies, and I casually told my sister that I was going to my boyfriend's house. She just playfully teased me, unaware that I had a date. Of course, my sister already had another date lined up. She moved on quickly, as usual. At the movie theater, we were patiently waiting in line for popcorn, and when we finally reached the front, the girl at the counter couldn't resist a teasing remark, saying, "One box not enough." I was taken aback and caught off guard by the situation. I couldn't believe my luck. I mumbled to Adrian that I wasn't feeling well, hoping to find an excuse to leave. He reassured me that I'd probably feel better once we were seated. I just wanted to escape that awkward scenario. What were the odds of both Nova and me choosing the same movie theater for our dates? Adrian excused himself to use the restroom, leaving me nervously waiting alone. Then I felt a hand gently patting my back, and I heard a voice saying, "Ready, babe." The movie starts in 5 minutes. But it wasn't Adrian's voice. Panic washed over me. No. I stammered something about needing to use the bathroom again. But my sister insisted, "Didn't you just go?" So, I faked a laugh and said, "Yep, tiny bladder. I'll meet you in the back row." With that, I hurried into the restroom, praying that Nova wouldn't spot me. Fortunately, she was still in one of the stalls, chatting away on the phone while arranging her next date. She was truly something else. Still on a date and already planning her next one. I couldn't risk her bumping into Adrian, so I had to wait until the coast was clear before heading back out. Her date had left, and only Adrian remained. I came up with an excuse, telling him that I had suddenly felt sick and needed to go home, so we left the theater. Adrian seemed disappointed, but he suggested we could catch the movie another time. I realized that if I wanted to keep seeing Adrian, it had to be in secret from now on. I knew that eventually, I'd have to come clean, but I just wasn't ready. Adrian kept asking to meet my family, but I always brushed it off, claiming they were too busy, and eventually, he stopped asking. We always hung out at his place, which suited me just fine. After a few months, my sister suddenly dropped the bomb that she was going on a trip to visit a friend on the West Coast. She just packed up and left, which struck me as quite unusual. I had been spending a lot of time with Adrian, so I hadn't been home much. However, our mom mentioned that she had been acting strangely quiet and thought something might be bothering her. Meanwhile, Adrian continued to call me Nova, and it was starting to grate on my nerves. I had always believed that I was nicer than my sister, but I was slowly realizing that maybe I was no better than her. I tried calling her several times, and each time she insisted that she was perfectly fine. Yet, deep down, I had a gut feeling that something wasn't right. Perhaps she had discovered that I was dating Adrian and had left because she was hurt. But when she finally confided in me about the real reason for her departure, my heart nearly stopped. She revealed that she was pregnant and trying to determine the identity of the father. I was in shock. She then mentioned that she was 99% sure it was a guy living on the West Coast, and she had gone there to find him. Apparently, he was thrilled about it, and they were even considering getting married. I couldn't believe it. I had never pictured my sister as the type to get married. All along, my goal had been to find a nice guy to marry, and she had seemingly beaten me to it. After we hung up the phone, I decided to confess to her that I was seeing someone. I called her back, and she was overjoyed for me, eagerly looking forward to meeting him. I was hesitant to reveal his name, but I knew it would come out sooner or later. That evening, Adrian and I went to his parents' house for dinner. When he picked me up, I could sense that something was amiss. He appeared angry and showed me a photo on his phone, which left me speechless. It was a picture of my sister and her boyfriend having a grand time at Disneyland in Los Angeles. Adrian showed me the picture and asked if I had any explanation. The photo was from the weekend when I had to cancel my date with Adrian due to feeling unwell. He no longer believed my explanation and suspected that I was cheating on him. Panic set in, and I knew I had to come clean. I stammered, "Actually, she's my twin sister." Adrian looked at me like I was out of my mind and promptly told me to leave his car. Desperation overcame me, and I pleaded with him to hear me out. I confessed that my sister was Nova and I was Stella, and I pretended to be her that day in the park out of spite. I wanted to get back at her for making me fall in love with him, and by that point, it seemed impossible to confess the truth. I explained that my sister had moved to Los Angeles to live with her fiancé. To make him believe me, I even showed him a picture of Nova and me together. Still, he insisted that I leave his car and made it clear that he never wanted to see me again. Devastation engulfed me. I had managed to ruin everything. Adrian stopped responding to my messages, and functioning normally at work became an arduous task. I missed him deeply, and strangely, I began to miss my sister as well, even though it was her actions that had pushed me into this predicament. After a couple of months, she returned home, her pregnant belly prominent. She was only 8 weeks away from giving birth, but she was alone. I knew that her fiancé had left her, as he realized he couldn't be the father due to the timing. He had advised her to return home, and now she was facing the prospect of being a single mother. My sister asked about the guy I'd been seeing, and I told her that he had broken up with me as well. She consoled me, saying, "Oh man, all guys are the same," but I wasn't entirely truthful. You see, I had rekindled my relationship with Adrian in secret. He missed me as much as I missed him, and life felt incomplete without each other. So we were seeing each other behind closed doors. At the same time, my bond with my sister was growing stronger. When she gave birth, I was there with her throughout the experience. I urged her to get a paternity test to determine the baby's father, but she insisted that she could handle being a single mother. However, when my nephew was born, something didn't add up. His thick red hair pointed to a clear truth, and when my sister saw him, she realized it too. She turned to me and uttered, "I know who the father is." I wanted to scream because I knew precisely who the father was as well, and it meant my life was about to crumble. Adrian had red hair, and there was only one course of action to take. An hour later, Adrian rushed to the hospital. I had texted him to come urgently, and he arrived looking extremely worried, fearing that something was wrong with me. When he saw me standing beside Nova and her newborn baby, he nearly fainted. I felt utterly foolish for not considering this sooner. My sister inquired how Adrian knew to find her at the hospital, and before I could respond, he confessed that he had been with me for the past 9 months. My sister's eyes filled with hurt and confusion. What should have been the happiest moment of her life had suddenly turned into a complete catastrophe, all because of my actions. You might assume that my sister and Adrian reconciled to raise their son together, but it wasn't quite that simple. You see, Adrian and I were deeply in love. He wanted to marry me. It might seem strange to marry the man who fathered my sister's child, but life can be unpredictable. My sister eventually forgave me, but I'm aware that we'll have a lot of explaining to do in the future. Our son will undoubtedly have questions about why his father is also his uncle. When Adrian, our son, and I go out to play, people often assume he's my child. We're planning to get married soon, and who knows, maybe we'll have another baby shortly afterward. That would make his cousin his half-brother. Yes, it's a bit complicated. But in the end, I got what I wanted. Perhaps now my sister will reconsider her habit of dating every guy in town.